Chapter 8 talks about one of the most important but unfortunately ignored words in public relations, and that is research. For any good public relations campaign planning effort to be successful, research has to be a key component to it. It has to be there at the very initial stage when you're doing the planning. It's got to be there prior to putting together a campaign. And probably the big area where it needs to be applied the most is in the outcome, in the final stage to evaluate if the program that you put into effect was effective. There's the Public Relations Society of America has annual awards for PR campaigns, for testing the effectiveness of booklets, websites, etc. And a key component of what determines a winner over a non-winner is the research. How much research was used to, one, put the campaign together, and then secondly, how much research was used at the end of the campaign to determine whether or not if it was effective. If you're not testing out your campaigns, if you're not seeing what the outcome is of your efforts, you have no way of knowing if it works or not. So as you go into next year, planning a similar campaign, what's to say if you do what you did before or do something different? You have nothing to base that off of. And, in the interest of budget and being the most effective that you can, that research will help a long ways. Page 149 to 151 talks about some of the different types of research that is out there, and goes in to talk about the differences between applied research, theoretical research, and secondary research. I'm a big fan of the third, secondary research. Lots of great research sources out there that are available, particularly here in the state of Alaska, or really any state, where you can find out information on from demographics, census information. State of Alaska has some great research available online on everything from job industry growth, statistics relating to the economy. So anyone with a computer and some savvy internet search can gather a lot of this secondary research that's out there. The book talks about secondary research being kind of research on the cheap because it doesn't really cost anything other than the salary for the staff time that's doing the research, but it's really valuable research. And if you're running a PR campaign with little budget but do want to work in that necessary research component, secondary research is the way to go. Now, another option for research, doing in-house research, is to do some of the data collecting on your own, which is done through a few different ways. The big one that the book spends a lot of time talking about are surveys. And I'm glad that they spend a lot of time talking about surveys, because there is nothing worse than a really poorly done survey. And I suspect many of you out there have been on the receiving end of getting a survey in the mail, or asked to apply to a survey online, or getting a telephone survey, and it was just a complete waste of your time. And you really wondered, why were you participating in this? That's not what the PR people want to hear. They want to make sure that the people are willing to participate in the surveys, because that's going to allow them to collect the data that will be used to help make decisions. So the book talks about some of the ways to be successful in surveys in terms of your sampling. Who are you trying to get the survey to? How to best phrase the questionnaire. Is it better to use, say, a man on the street type of interview, or conducting the survey through a focus group, which is really kind of an art on its own. So I think that's a really good section to pay attention to. One of our favorite survey tools here at UAF that we've used quite a bit is SurveyMonkey, which is a free online survey that you can use, and it does a great job of helping guide you through for setting up a survey. But even better is the end result, the type of data that you can compile based upon when you've had your share of respondents for the survey. So it's called SurveyMonkey. I think it used to be a free source at one time. I don't think it is anymore, but there are some other ones out there as well that are quite effective. Communication audits is a good way to determine how effective your communication tools are within your organization. Are people actually reading the company newsletter? Are media paying attention to your news releases? If you're not asking those questions, you're going to continue doing things same old, and you might not be having the desired results. I like to talk too about the unobtrusive methods of surveying, and probably a real a real good one for that pertains to public relations, and we do this within my unit as well, within media relations, is determining how effective media relations efforts are. The press releases you send out, the media contacts you make based upon news coverage of the messages that you're sending out. So we subscribe to a news clipping service, do news tracking, and compile monthly reports to determine how much media we're getting out there about the University of Alaska Fairbanks, from local, statewide to national to international media. And it's pretty impressive when you look at some of the numbers and see just how effective your results are. And top management loves to see results, so if anything, do it for that. Finally, the book goes on to talk about evaluating your research methods and then web research. Best example of web research out there is, what you're trying to do with web research is determine, are people visiting your website? And Google Analytics, of course, Google does everything, but Google Analytics does a great job and runs some fascinating reports on your website. You can determine everything from geographic location of where hits to your website are coming in, whether the person is a first-time clicker or a second-time clicker, the method that they got to your site, how long they're staying on your site, and very handy tool. Finally, we talk about outside help. You know, a lot of times, you know, depending on how important that campaign is, you might want to outsource the research of the campaign to an external agency rather than handle it in-house. Here at UAF, we've used the McDowell Group, based out of Juneau, to do some statewide analysis for us, ranging on projects from determining the economic impact of the life sciences building to testing what the perceptions are of alumni of the University of Alaska. Of course, these things cost money, but boy, do they give you great insight into what you should or shouldn't be doing. So that's research. Very important chapter to read, very important subject for anyone considering public relations. We'll see you next time.